Yeah. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo. Dear devotees of Chicago Ckb-Bari, again, a continuation of the series of lectures on astronomy and astrology. So Sriram Ramanujam from Virginia will continue to talk about the celestial planets. Thank you.
Jai Shriman Narayana. This is Sriram here again. Thank you for watching us. Today, we are going to talk a little bit, in continuation with what we talked last time. Last time, I think we covered the fact where we were, with respect to the motions in the planetary system, right? With respect to the sun and how we are forming the, how the Earth goes around, the Sauramana months. And today it's going to be an important one because we are coming into the start of the Plava Samvatsara. So Plava Samvatsara is a new year for as per the Indian calendar. So as per the Indian calendar, we are in Plava Samvatsara. Chandramana Yugadi is going to be tomorrow. Today is pretty much Amavasya. So that's why I have the moon positioned right there between the earth and the sun. So today is Amavasya. So the first day, Prathama day, is Chandramana Ugadi. The Ugadi starts when the moon starts to go to the first day after the Amavasya. When the earth is here and the sun is pointing towards Mesha, Chitra, right? This is where the Samvatsara begins, is where I have noted. So that's how we start our Chandramana Ugadi for most parts of India, right? 90% of India tomorrow, in the next 2 days is going to be celebrating New Year. It's called Varsha Pirappu in Tamil Nadu. Vishu in many parts in Kerala, and also in many parts of India. So I'll talk to you about how Vishu is the name Vishu comes up, and also why we have the New Year in both Gujarat. Gujarat, it starts in Kartika Masa, which is right opposite actually on this side. When the earth is on the other side, right? We are at the autumn, or in autumn, fall equinox, right? And then we are the vernal equinox when we are here on this side. So that's how the start of the year happens. So we'll talk about that. Before that, I just want to kind of briefly cover, continue or complete the story of Kartika, because it's pretty important. Because Kartika, when Kartik, we talked about Kritika, right? Kritika Nakshatra, there are 6 in number. As you know, nakshatras, we talked about nakshatras last time, and each nakshatra here that you see, the 27 around our space, they are all governed by a devata. So every nakshatra has a devata. So they have floated a bond kind of thing. So in the sense that, for example, Kritika nakshatra, their adipati, or they work with the devata called Agni. So Agni is the most important devata that is mentioned numerous times in the Vedas. He is the one that is considered the lowest form of devata, who can take your havis. That's why when you do homam, you invoke Agni. So Agni needs to come to your havan and then be present in that havan, and he's the one who's going to transport the havis that you give him back to the devatas, the respective devata. If you do a Navagraha homam, the Agni is the one that takes it in the form of light. He converts that energy, right? He eats it up and converts that energy and the form of light. He carries it over to the devatas. So don't imagine that, you should imagine that there is a transaction that's happening there by you offering something, and it's not just, going nowhere, right? Agni will be present there. He takes it and then transports it all the way to Indra or the Navagrahas or whoever you are trying to propitiate or have a relationship with. So that's why Agni is so important. That Kritika Nakshatra's Devata, Adipati, what we call as Adipati. So the Adipati of Kritika is Agni. Now, if you go back to the Puranas, if you imagine how related everything is with our Puranas and what our Puranas say, Shiva, right? Lord Shiva and Parvati are in a posture. Lord Shiva is doing tapas for 36,000 years. He's accumulated so much energy. Now that energy had to be released. The energy that's released from him as the seeds are completely, it's extremely hot. It's so hot that nobody can ever do anything with it. Now it has to come in the form of a baby, and that baby that came out of that transaction was called Kartikeya of Subramanya that we saw. Nobody else could manage the heat that was produced by Shiva in the when he releases that energy, because Kritikas happen to be working for Agni. They are the only ones as the mother that are able to handle the heat that is released there. And that's the reason why the Kritikas are able to suckle Kartikeya, transform that energy source into a source that becomes a skanda. And he is the chief of the Gana army, right? So because of the Agni. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is all of these nakshatras are in turn governed by an adipati, which is the devata. So when we are born, right, when we are born under a certain nakshatra on a certain day, there is an devata that becomes in charge of us. There is a graha that becomes in charge of us. There is a pitru lokha, people that become charge of us. So that's why when we take for birth in on this earth, in order to complete our karma, the one thing that the three people that are primarily very important for us is devatas, that are governed by all these nakshatras. The Pitrus are the ones that decide who the right match. They find the right match for your lineage based on your karma. And the rishis, of course, are the ones that try to give you the knowledge. They are also the ones that tried, created uh, the living organisms. Actually, everything from animals to plants to humans. The rishis were the ones that created it. Okay, so that's briefly what I wanted to kind of cover today in the intro in terms of the nakshatras. So we can, at one point of time, we will when we talk about how important they are, right, to our daily lives, we will talk about how they influence us in how we behave, what we should do to propitiate them, how we need to keep them in good spirits. So they all form. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you are born here in the United States or in India or in Africa. They absolutely have influence over you. That's what our rishis have found out, and that's what we know, and we absolutely believe that is true. So now coming back to where we are in terms of the position in on this planetary system, we are exactly at this point, at a culmination where the sun is going to point towards Mesha, right? Mesha Rashi. This section of the pie is called Mesha. So that's where it's going to move into. Now the earth is right diametrically opposite to that Rashi. Like we talked about that last time also. And as we saw, the moon is Amavasya. The reason why in like another 15 days, the moon's going to, even when the earth is going to be at midpoint, the moon is going to be pointing to Chitra nakshatra, right? In 15 days, this is where it's going to be. So this Chitra nakshatra is where it's going to have full moon, and that's why the month is also called Chitra Masam, the Chaitra Masa. The Chaitra comes up because of us being in that position. Now, there are different parts of India. They also called Baishakha or Baisakhi, right? That's not by accident, or that's not by they don't have a reason for it. There's a very good reason for that also. Look at what comes right after Chitra, right? Vaishaka Nakshatra. So the calendar, the people that follow the Purnimanta, right? Every Purnami is a month, a change. Now, when we talk about this calendar here, we are talking about people that start their month from an Amavasya. So the people that follow Amavasya are going to have the month called Chaitra. But people that started to call that follow the month starting from the full moon, they start 1 month ahead. They're looking at this point, they are looking forward to Vaishaka. And that's the reason why, right, the V is a B in many parts of the country. So that's how that becomes Baishaka or Baisakhi, in the way they call it. So it's very interrelated. It's pretty much the same thing. It's all related to the nakshatras that we have. India is one, right, across the board. Whatever we may have done, people may have taught us that we are very different. We're extremely different in what languages that we speak, but the core and the heart of it is the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture is so strong that it is impossible for anybody to root out the fact that we still, even today, if you go, people call themselves Baisakhi. They have different months, but at the end of the day, everybody knows Chitra as Chitra Nakshatra. You can imagine we were all dispersed thousands of kilometers away, and yet we all speak the same language in terms of the Vedic language. That's the beauty of the whole thing, and that could have come in only because if we have the same roots that the Vedic rishis gave to us. If not, it's impossible for us to gather up of our thoughts and to be so, united in the way we look at the universe around us. So one of the other thing is, just like I said, this is Mesha. What is when during the autumn equinox, actually the earth is going to be here. We are going to move into Tula. If you look at the month here that we are in currently, the earth is going to be at this point, okay, and the moon and like the sun is going to be pointing to Tula. When you point to Tula, right, the earth, when it's here in this portion, the month that's called is Kritika Mamasa, right? When the Kartika Masa happens, that's when the new year starts for some people, or it's when the earth is on the side. So it's both these diametrically opposite pi is what defines the new year for us. And if you look at the new year that we're talking to Mesha, right, we are calling it a Vasanta Rutu. So the Rutu that forms between these 2 months, Mesha and Vrishabha, the Vaikhasi, that comes up, right? The Rashi that comes up next is Vaikhashi, and that's another reason why we have the Vaishaka, Vaishaka. It's all very much the same based on the Vishaka Nakshatra. Okay, the names always come from Nakshatra. The Rashi's names come from Nakshatra. Um, Now, because these 2 months, the next 2 months are going to be Vasanta Rutu, where we're going to have spring, life is going to start, it's going to take effect, right? And from Vasanta Rutu, we move to Grishma Rutu, the summer months, the peak summer months. Even though in India it may feel like it's super hot, it's going to get hotter, right? With Grishma Rutu, which is the 2 months that go up with that is Mithuna and Karkata. I've have the same zodiac signs, like Mithuna is Gemini, the same thing. Karkata is Cancer. uh, you know uh, uh, and those two are Grishma Ritu. And after the Grishma Ritu comes Simha Masa, right? Simha Masa and what we call the Kanya Masa. Kanya Masa, they form the Varsha Ritu. So Varsha Ritu actually is the rainy season that we all know of. Rainy season is important for everything. After hot months of summer, we get into Varsha Ritu. People imagine generally, at least in the northern hemisphere, right, the rainy season is just in India and stuff like that. Truly speaking, there's water activity all through the world. If you look at it, there are hurricane season that's going on right around that time. There's tornadoes, and there's all kinds of activities that happen that pulls the water out of the ocean and then puts it on the earth. All of that really happens during Varsha Ritu. you can go back and refer to all scientific things. It's all there. It's practical. That's how it's been named, Varsha Rutu. After Varsha Rutu comes Sharad Rutu for our for the months of you know Tula and Vrishchika. Uh, so those two months are going to be the winter season. They start the winter season. Oh, the fall. Sorry. Sharad Rutu is the fall. It really, it's kind of the fall, but yeah, the start of the season, but for the fall. Um, Hemant Rutu is where the real winter is. Truly speaking, Dhanurmasa. Dhanurmasa, the December and the January or the 2 months that are pretty much the winter months. That's how it's depicted in our system too. It's Hemant Rutu, and after Hemant Rutu, it's called Shishira Rutu. Truly speaking, Shishira Rutu is also called deep freeze. Okay, if you look at even the northern hemisphere here, where we are in the United States, the months that are really coldest, truly speaking, are in the towards the end of January and February, right? And that's the deep freeze that occurs throughout. Right? That's what's called the Shishira Rutu, for our months of ending of January, February, and towards the beginning of March. Even though things start to look up right now, that's where we are. So we are going to be in going into a new year. Wishing everybody a very happy new year, for those who are going to be celebrating it. But our months are basically taken from how this happens. So one other concept that we did not mention yet, or we want to kind of introduce now, we talked about the solstice, the not the solstice. We talked about the equinoxes, right? The equinoxes that happen when the Samvatsaram happens, right? The fall equinox and the spring. Okay. Now the solstice is right here. When you see in the middle of the dead center of the summer season, we have what's called the Dakshinayana. That's when the earth is rotating, right, revolving around the earth, around the sun. When it crosses the peak summer in the month of June, July, is when it crosses over to Dakshinayana. It goes to southern direction. It's in the southern direction, is what we call it. That's what's called Dakshinayanam. And Uttarayanam, on the other hand, is the right opposite that we had in January. January, when you have the Shankranti, Makara Shankranti that we call it, Makara Masa, right? The Makara Masa is right here. When you see it, Makara, right? Makha. That's again because of Makha Nakshatra. I want to point out that too. So the earth is going to be right here. The sun is going to be pointing towards Makara. The earth is going to be in this position. And the full moon is going to be pointing to Makha Nakshatra there. Okay, that's the reason why we have the month called Makara Masa. Actually, I'll go through each of those to make sure that we have the names right, based on what we have. So Makara Masa is basically because the Makha Nakshatra is when the moon is going to be pointing to, but the sun is going to be showing the Makara Masa. So we looked at what's called the Uttarayana, the Dakshinayana there in the summer, and during the peak of the winter, right, mid-January, 14th of January usually, is when we have Uttarayana. We start to go to the northerly direction. When we start doing that, actually, when the earth is earth is revolving in a slightly elliptical format, right? The sun is right there, and the earth is going closer to the earth, to the sun, actually. So the gravitational forces act on it in such a way that it pulls it faster. Because it's closer, it's going to go faster. Our months are going to be shorter, but then we travel actually at a much faster pace when we are in this position, and try to get over it. So when we get over that hump is what happens when you cross the Uttarayana. So Uttarayana is when we cross that, and then we celebrate something called the Ratha Saptami, right? That's exactly right around this month when we call into this month here. So again, Uttarayana, Dakshina Ayana. When you say Ayana, Ayana means something that comes back. So that's why Ramayana is also something that comes back. Ramayana that we may know of with the 24,000 slokas or in this yuga, but there's been many, the same format, right? The gist of the story and everything else remains the same. but the details of what happens in each may vary. Like Brahmaloka, they still have a Ramayana, and that Ramayana may be thousands of crores, or it is, I shouldn't say maybe, it is thousands of slokas big, because they can grasp as much. Our grasping capability is as much as a 24,000. Even that, we have lost it right now. Without a book, we can't do it. But the reason why I bring the correlation or similarity is because Dachina Ayanam or Ayanam or Uttarayanam, or both Ayanams, which means they come back. Because time and again, when we keep rotating, revolving around the sun, we are going to revisit the Ayanams. So that's how we come up with Ayanam. Now, so I want to quickly also show you, right, the months, right? We looked at the Mesha Masa, because of the Chitrai, Nakshatra, that's going to be there. That's why it's called Mesha Masa, Chaitra Masa. Now, when we go into Vaikasi next month, it's going to be Vishaka Nakshatra, right? They've picked out some nakshatras, not all of them make it to the cut, but some do. When we go into Mithuna Masa, right, then it's going to be the Ashada, right? Here comes the Ashada. So you might have seen they call the Ashada Mamasa, where it's windy actually. So it becomes windy when we come to this portion of it. So, and as we move along, right, when we move along to Karkata Ani, then the Ani is really called because of Shravana. Karkata is Adi is Uttarashada. Mithuna, this is Uttarashada, Purvashada. And then, when you go to here, it's going to be Shravana. Then when we go to this month right here, it's going to be these two nakshatras, Bhadrapada. So Bhadrapada name comes from because of Purva Bhadra and Uttara Bhadra. These stars make up the month there. And then when we go to this month, Ashwayuja. You may have heard of Ashwayuja. That's because of the Ashwini Nakshatra. The next month after Ashwayuja is Kartika Masa because of the Kritika Nakshatras. And then right after that, you go into Margashira, right? Margashira because of Mrigashira Nakshatra. So Mrigashira Nakshatra gives you Margashira. And this is where the moon is going to be. The full moon is going to be the full moon is going to be in Mrigashira Nakshatra. The next month to it is Punarvasu. That's why you call it. You have Pushya. So Pushya Masa, right? After Mrigashira Nakshatra is Pushya Masa. This star governs that month, Pushya. And after the Pushya Masa, if you look at it, right, the distance itself is not too much. Mrigashira to Punarvasu seems longer. We cover it faster actually, because even though it's such a long distance, you cover it faster, like I said, because of the gravitational pull. We go faster during the winter months, and then we kind of slow down. Then from Pushya we go into Palguna. We go into Palguna Masa, right? Palguna Masa defines it. What did I leave something out? Palguni. Masi is Kumbha Masa, right? Kumbha Masa is defined by Makha Nakshatra. So Masi. So Kumbha is defined by Makha. Yeah, that's how the names come up. And there's 14 stars that we that because of the I say 14. Of course, there are 12 months, and our months, the names of the month come from the nakshatras. And the nakshatras, since the Uttarashada and Purvashada are a pair, and Uttara Palguni and Purva Palguni are a pair, we have 14 nakshatras basically that gives us the names of our months. So the nakshatras have a very great meaning for us throughout. They are devatas. That's why the 27 nakshatras, when we do nakshatreshti homam, with respect to even when we do navagraha homam, nakshatra, in our Vedic Vedas itself, right? Nakshatreshti is an extremely important part that's recited quite a lot. So these heavenly bodies are absolutely a delight in terms to watch, in terms to know their movements, in knowing how they impact our daily lives. In the next lecture or so, we can cover the sankalpam, and why we do sankalpam, and what all things we note down when we do sankalpam, and also the impact or their effect on us, on the effect of the heavenly bodies, the planets, the nakshatrams, the tithi, and also I want to cover grahanams. In a grahanam, you've all heard about eclipses. Eclipses are a extremely intriguing phenomena that happen, and we need to know why they happen and why they are accorded such a important place in our philosophy and in our culture, in how we do tarpanams, in how we do things, because they form an extremely important part, right? Every day when you look at it, you have Rahu Kalam, right? You don't have you have one Sunday in it's 7 days in a week, but you have Rahu Kalam every single day. So they are important, however it is, right? So we will talk about those aspects also in the next probably couple lectures. And thank you again for tuning in and giving me this opportunity to talk in front of you guys. Jai Shiva Narayana.
Again, thanks a lot, Sri Ram and Anita. Excellent presentation, really wonderful indeed. Wondering, how the planetary situation, the sun, moon, the earth, and the other planet is so much interrelated with human beings when we are born here on the earth. It's amazing. And as you said, that one, the time of the birth is such a thing. That one where. See, I'm thinking about, somebody did a research on the horoscope of Lord Rama. You see, where the planetary positions were when Rama was born, and why is Rama, because of, he was born at a particular second, in the earth,
yeah,
where the positions of the various planets were in such a, in a thing, Similarly, somebody did also on Krishna's horoscope, and somebody did on Vivekananda also, Somebody did on Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, So these are all the things. So much our life is interdependent on this planet. Without that, nothing moves. And who planned it? That is what the $1 million question. Is it by accident or is it a wonderful planning done by somebody above us? You see?
Absolutely.
Thanks
Absolutely.
a lot.
I will on one of the lectures, I will show you exactly how Ramayana, right? Ramayana has the exact positions of the planets with respect to this chart here. We will plot it out. We will plot it out, and we'll show you how they were at the time of Rama's birth. That's how accurate and how wonderful our system is in noting where the Earth was in relation to the other planets during the time of somebody's birth. So that's a wonderful thing to see.
It's amazing, it's done millions or, thousands and hundreds of thousands of years ago, where we never had anything, no paper, no pencil, nothing, and how
What's greater than the mind?
Our mind, and it's such a, mind is such a powerful object it is, the brain and the mind. How much of it the rishis use it and how much we are using it is a question of, again, $1 million question, Thanks a lot. Appreciate your presentation, and thanks your daughter, she did an outstanding job in moving the thing to the right positions. Thanks a lot. Okay. With that, we will conclude today's lecture. Thank you. Yeah, there may be an Amavasa Puja there at the temple today. Maybe it may be just starting or soon it will be starting. Thank you. Appreciate it.